And then there was the other issue. Zoe Quinn. She is a game developer for an indie project called Depression Quest, and there's a company she works for. I stupidly forgot the name here. But she'd been complaining about harassment from a group of very angry male gamer sorts, doing the usual things that they tend to do, and I am definitely not siding with that kind of... when trolls are funny, and they're trolling for an obvious joke or humor purposes, I can get a kick out of a good troll. But when it becomes stuff like, I don't mean just like terroristic death threats either, because there is definitely that, but even just the ones who are trying to go and make me a sandwich or tits or GTFO, that type of stuff is not funny. It wasn't funny then. I'm not sure it's funny now, but I know the jokes are still out there, so there's obviously, and again, I don't find South Park funny, so there you go. That's probably personal opinion there. But at the same time, most of this stuff is more damaging than it is funny, and most people will tell you that. The point of the troll is to make that other person angry. So she gets upset about this male-centric group downing her for what she's doing, and she was basically trying to get attention for her game because, now, I have conflicting reports on this, but I understand that she's a self-proclaimed lesbian, but this is going to come into play as being something that's obviously not the case here in a moment, but she's also a champion of women in gaming and got the attention of a lot of high-profile people, including Phil Fish and high-profile feminists like Anita Sarkeesian, who I'll get to in a moment, and there was a lot of liberal slanted news websites that was just all over the story promoting this game that a lot of people were even saying was not even that good, but a lot of other people saying it was just this groundbreaking game about people learning to deal with depression and what it can do to people. Well,
it's the text game.
Here's where things got ugly. Her boyfriend got angry because he discovered a whole bunch of stuff, and despite trying to work with her over and over and over in a very horrific situation, he finally got upset enough he posted the whole thing, a bunch of posts and pictures and all sorts of stuff that went down with her. She slept with her boss at the game company to further her project.
That's right.
She slept with apparently 4 other people, including a member of Kotaku, to get reviews for the game. Now, what she does in the bedroom is her own business. But when she brings it into the business world, that is no longer a keep it in the bedroom situation. She cheated on the guy, that's between her and the guy, but the fact that she was doing this to get the attention, and it's not particularly new. We've had a lot of scandals and, quote, dates with the gamer reviews and publicists for a long time now. This is just another one added on, so it's not so much that this makes it a particular special note. This is what's different. There is a mass media blackout on almost all game news websites and places like Reddit over this situation. And the only reason for it, she is female. And because she is female, it is making a bad mark for other female gamers and game makers in the field. And I can sort of understand the reasonings for that, but at the same time, they've absolutely persecuted and crucified just about every male who's ever been in a scandal like this, even without evidence.
Mm-hmm.
And there's plenty of evidence on this particular case, trust me.
On this one, she has every single feminist group in the palm of her hand.
Some websites are outright saying give Quinn a pass. Forget about her and the ordeal altogether because it hurts women in the industry. And yes, it does. But this is not about women in the industry being persecuted as much as it is people like this giving them a bad name. So these are people that we should call out when they do bad things, just like we do the guys, and say this is not the sort of attitude we want in our community. I'm sorry, I'm not going to give her a free pass for this. And the more we pander to special interest groups, the more flubs and falters like this happen, the harder it's going to be to make them separate. And if you don't believe me, look around at the rest of the society and the very things everyone is on the bandwagon of hate about. For example, most of the hate towards the larger groups is born out of smaller groups or individuals that are being made into figureheads by the rest of society. For example, you would not believe how many people judge all of Christianity through the Westboro Baptist Church. No. You don't judge all Muslims by the Al-Qaeda. These are extremist groups. These are bad people doing bad things, and you do not throw everybody under the bus with it. It's like Ferguson. Yes, I will go there. Most of the people that were in those rallies were doing what they're supposed to be doing, but because you have a certain group of people that were looting and hurting people and shooting people, it made the whole town look kind of bad. That's non-game related, so I'm not going to get too deep into that. I'm just using that as an example of where they took a group of people and judged the entire black community because of those people. That's not right.
Well, when it comes to When it comes to Zoe, it's just kind of like, I don't like it when game companies or developers pay reviewers to give them a higher score.
Nope.
And I don't like it any more or any less when somebody fucks people, literally, to get a higher score for their game. Now, some people would say that's sexist because I'm, just because just because I'm saying it towards her. It would be no different if a guy did exactly the same thing. You do not bribe people to up your scores for the games. You shouldn't have to worry about that. You should be making your game so that you don't have to worry about that.
Well, let's hypothetically reverse this situation just for the sake of my own personal humor. let us say that Zoe Quinn was a male game developer and he made this game and approached female journalists with the exact same proposition I suspect Zoe Quinn used on the male journalists to get better reviews. How do you think that situation would have gone?
Not well.
It probably wouldn't have.
That should have been the words.
It would have been all over the front page of whatever journalist site was propositioned, and they're like, you won't believe what this guy said to me. Oh, he's such a sexist bastard, so insensitive, blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
But again, because it's a female doing it, and a man, took the bait, moron.
Oh, I'm not protecting those guys either. I just don't know exactly their stories so much, but they're every bit as much to blame. Do not, yeah.
It was overlooked and agreed upon, and even allowed to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, just for my own personal humor, if this was a man asking a woman for sex, for a good interview, it's like, hey, I'll have sex with you if you give my game a good review. Unless your name is Sean Connery, you can't get away with that.
You'd be chased out of the gaming community forever. You would never get a job in the gaming industry again.
Oh, man.
And there actually has been similar situation to that sort of thing about people complaining about harassment or, what's his name, Tom Sirkian, the guy who made Cards Against Humanity, that was in that rape case where apparently all the evidence is in his favor, but he still felt that he had to justify himself publicly because she accused him publicly, and people still threw him out like he was... I mean, he made Cards Against Humanity. I don't expect the guy to have exactly the greatest scruples and morals to begin with. But that aside, it did sound like he was awful innocent, and what kept getting thrown into his face was the fact that there's apparently a statistic out there that only 8% of accusations about sexual assault are innocent. I don't know how you even come up with a something like that unless you're using actual court cases where the guy was proven innocent. But I don't know, it just seems... I hate statistics like that because you never know where they're getting them, and they always seem to, once somebody uses them, everybody uses them, and suddenly they have legitimacy. And that drives me nuts, regardless of what the statistic's about. It doesn't even have to be something controversial.
It reminds me of that Twitter yes all women thing.
And I don't mean this about specifically rape, but I'm just saying, unless you were there and you saw whatever is being accused personally, you cannot definitively say what actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
now, you can surmise, you can draw up what would be a valid conclusion probably, but you could not definitively say that you know with 100% certainty that this is what happened.
And I'm not going to try to get on a gender wars bandwagon here because I would actually consider myself a feminist if I didn't hate what the word has turned into. So yes. I don't know if equalist is the right word, because to me that rings bells like Firefly, if I'm not mistaken. Wasn't that what the resistance was called in that? But anyway.
I don't remember.
But I believe that people should be treated as people. There should not be favoritism. There should not be special cases for anything like that. However, I do want to say that something that has irritated me since I was an itty-bitty little fella, and maybe I should even get into that just to explain to people where I'm coming from a lot of this stuff, because I may sound like I'm saying one thing when I'm actually meaning something a little more centered. So I'm going to give a little background of myself. I'm a white male Caucasian. Try that again. I'm a white male Christian, probably the most hated demographic in the United States right now. And you can say anything vile about those three things that you want. It's open game, loaded for bear, all that type of stuff. And you will very rarely be called out upon it. You can be sexist toward men, you can be racist toward whites, and you can call Christians whatever you want. And except from the community itself that you're accusing, everybody else is probably going to agree with you and laugh. However, I'm also heavily Cherokee as well. So I've been harassed, I've been teased, I've been threatened, I've been put down in all of those four categories my entire life. And I'm not talking about first word problems about, some little off comment somewhere. No, I'm talking about some of the more serious stuff that everybody else talks about. So for the few people out there that are listening and getting all angry, please keep the off the top of the head judgments to yourself, because I work on issues like like this on a person-by-person basis. I don't clump everybody together, even if I may use the language to make it sound like I do. And not to sound like a cliche, but I've had a lot of alternative lifestyle folks in my life for a good number of years, especially since I've been online. And not just acquaintances, but extremely close friends that despite our differences, we cared about each other. And a lot of us were like a couple of different dysfunctional families of our own. And they were heterosexual, they were homosexual, they were bisexual, there was even a couple of transsexuals. They were into stuff like BDSM and furryism and all sorts of other stuff thrown in there. They were Catholics, they were Baptists, they were Wiccans, they were atheists, they were Rastafarians.
They were non-affiliated.
I got along with these people, and most of them got along with me. I mean, we've had our issues with a few of them, but I say this because I want to underscore how I'm not one of those so-called homophobes. I hate that word. It's turned into such a stupid word at this point that I don't even think people understand what they're saying when they say it. But it's a popular term, so go society go. But it's basically turned into a popular word to call anybody that disagrees with somebody else on that particular issue. I'm not a holy roller, but I'm not a pushover for blatant lies and fallacies that is pretty much pushing our schools and modern thought these days either. I do believe what I believe. And all those other folks I mentioned earlier, many of them respected me as a level-headed individual. A lot of these people came to me advice. Even the homosexuals came to me for advice about life and their dating habits and all this other type of stuff. So I am trying not to be biased or egotistical when I say that I think I'm kind of decent person in that regard. I actually enjoy debating and discussing a lot of this type of stuff because we learn a lot from each other. Wouldn't always agree. We find a lot of common ground that I think a lot of people would if they took the time to actually learn more about each other. So I just want to claim that I'm a rational person. My brain just don't always work too good. And Mike and Grover and I definitely don't see eye to eye on everything, despite how often it sounds like we're always in agreement with this type of stuff, especially on the show, which is really amusing. But I respect those differences, and I like them to say their minds or call me out, especially if I'm ever saying anything that's not sitting well with them. And not just corrections when I blunder on my thoughts or lines or anything, but anything, because I respect them, and I'm pretty sure they respect me. So I'm sorry if all of this may sound like I'm kind of being defensive or even aggressive, but I know the internet really well. You can hand people a perfect argument on a silver platter without any room to maneuver, and whether they're trolling or honestly replying, they will still try to make people say things that they didn't and alter evidence just to suit their own arguments or come up with statistics from somewhere. And I'm definitely making a wink over at you right about now, Reddit, but I also know that opinions are just that. So no matter what could be said, it's not likely going to change anyone's minds on the subject, which is again why I try to keep the soapbox of mine away from the show, because I am a lot more opinionated than I probably come off as being sometimes. These issues are continuing to batter on the gaming community, and it becomes more and more important to start taking stands when things are going too far. It's like the people that were screaming at Ubisoft because of the new Rainbow Six reveal that at E3 had a frantic female hostage that was apparently in some people's eyes sexist because she was being protected by, oh my goodness, men.
Oh,
and a female sniper, but I guess people forgot about that. Or one of the more obvious choices, a couple of years back when Capcom got all that flack for putting Resident Evil 5 in Africa, and the majority of the zombies were, of course, black, while you played as a white man, however, so that made it all racist. So, yeah. This stuff just keeps happening and happening and over. Things do need to change, and I think they need to get better with more balance, yes. But the blind insanity that's going on has to stop. There has to be more dialogue and more conversation over the whole thoughtless and hateful rants. Not that I think my voice on this obscure channel is going to help all that much, but, as the saying goes, all that is necessary for evil to triumph is good men do nothing. And I think that's exactly what's going on here.